The billionaire fell for the single mom who cleaned his room. Prologue. The note on the nightstand. The penthouse was too quiet. Maria Ellis had cleaned hundreds of hotel rooms, honeymoon suites stuffed with roses, bachelor suites reeking of cologne and regret. But this one felt different. It wasn't lonely. It was hollow, the kind of emptiness that clings to the air after someone leaves too suddenly. She pushed her cleaning cart inside, sneakers soft against polished marble. The curtains were half drawn, sunlight slicing through the room like a secret. Everything was immaculate except for the nightstand. There, beside a half-full glass of water, lay a folded note. Thick paper, elegant handwriting. Not something a careless guest would leave behind. Maria frowned, hesitation pinching her chest. She picked it up anyway. Whoever finds this, come to the rooftop at sunset. She blinked. Once, twice. Her lips twitched into a humorless smile. A joke, she murmured to the empty room. Or someone bored with too much money. Still, the handwriting. It was strong, deliberate, but pressed too hard, as if the pen had been held by someone carrying the weight of something unseen. For reasons she couldn't explain, her pulse quickened. Something about it felt familiar. Not the words, but the ache behind them. Her fingers brushed the paper again, tracing the grooves of ink. And for a heartbeat, she let herself imagine. What if it was him? No, that was ridiculous. He wouldn't be here. Not after all this time. And even if he was, so what? She wasn't the kind of woman men like that came back for. Maria folded the note carefully, tucking it into her pocket like a secret she didn't mean to keep. Don't be stupid, she whispered to herself. You have a kid to feed, not a mystery to chase. But all through the day, the note burned against her thigh like a pulse. Every vacuum hum, every spray of cleaner, every passing minute, it was there. By the time the clock neared sunset, she was still thinking about it, still pretending she wasn't. The rooftop doors slid open with a soft hiss. The city stretched before her, painted in amber light. The wind toyed with her hair, cool and restless. She told herself she was only up here to see what kind of fool actually left notes for strangers. But her heart was already racing. And then she saw him. A man stood near the edge of the terrace, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, wind tousling his dark hair. He turned, and the fading sunlight revealed him fully. Her breath caught. Of course she knew that face. Everyone did. The papers, the rumors, the billionaire who vanished after losing everything that couldn't be bought back. But she also knew him differently. From that night. When he wasn't a billionaire. When he was just a broken man sitting on a hotel floor, talking to ghosts that wouldn't leave him alone. He froze when their eyes met. For a second, disbelief flickered across his face. Then something softer. Relief. I didn't know who'd find the note, he said quietly, his voice roughened by the wind. But I hoped it would be you. Maria's mouth went dry. You? Remember me? He smiled faintly, a little unsure. I never forgot you. She let out a soft laugh that wasn't really a laugh. I'm just the maid who told you to drink some water and stop talking to a wall. His gaze softened. You were the only one who didn't look at me like I was broken. He stepped closer, and the distance between them shrank until she could feel the warmth of him. When you talked to me that night, he said, voice low, I was ready to disappear, but your words, they made me want to stay. Maria's pulse stumbled. You left me that note. Why? What are you expecting me to say? I'm not expecting anything, he said. I just wanted to see you again, to tell you thank you, and maybe, his voice faltered, to ask if you're okay. Her lips parted, caught between disbelief and something far more dangerous. Hope, you wanted to see me? He nodded once. Yes, I've thought about you more than I should have. Her throat tightened. She didn't trust her own voice. The man she once pitied was looking at her like she was the only thing that made sense. She didn't answer. Not yet. But as she looked at him, the memory of that first night, the whiskey, the grief, the trembling voice, rose in her mind like a tide she couldn't stop. Her breath caught. And in her heart, the past began to replay itself. Chapter 1. The Drunk Billionaire in Room 1802. The night Maria Ellis met Brent Morgan, the air smelled of rain and regret. Room 1802 had always been a favorite among the rich, the skyline view, the private balcony, the quiet luxury no one could afford to feel guilty about. It was also the same sweet staff whispered about. He always books that one. The man who got left at the altar. Maria didn't care about gossip. She just wanted to finish her shift and get home to Liam before he fell asleep. She'd already scrubbed 10 bathrooms and had no energy left for anyone else's mess. But when she opened the door, she knew this one would be different. The lights were dim. A bottle of scotch bled amber across the carpet. And near the window, a man sat on the floor, his tie undone, his soul seemingly the same. Brent Morgan. Even drunk, there was something magnetic about him. A man who'd built empires and lost something he couldn't rebuild. The tabloids said his fiancée had left him minutes before the ceremony. No note. No closure. Just a room full of flowers and cameras waiting for a love story that never began. And here he was again, in the same hotel where he proposed to her. The place he both hated and couldn't let go of. Maria hesitated. Sir? I'm here for housekeeping. He didn't move. His voice came out cracked, like an echo that had forgotten what strength sounded like. Clara? She froze. He lifted his head, eyes glassy but focused on her face as if trying to bring someone else into view. You came back. Her breath caught. He rose, unsteady but graceful in that drunk, dangerous way. I waited, he murmured. You said yes right here in this room. You said yes. Before she could step back, he reached for her hand, and the contact startled her. His palm was warm, trembling. He looked at her like a starving man remembering what it felt like to eat. Please, he whispered, voice breaking. Don't go again. She could have pulled away. Should have. But Maria Ellis was no stranger to being left behind. She'd begged once, years ago, for someone to stay. She'd been 21, pregnant, terrified, watching the man she loved walk away without looking back. She'd promised herself she'd never need anyone again. But now, with this broken man holding her hand like it was the last tether to sanity, something inside her cracked open. Something she thought she'd buried under years of responsibility and quiet strength. He took a shaky step closer. The scent of whiskey, the closeness of his breath. The world tilted. His eyes lingered on her lips, not in lust, but in memory. Her pulse thundered. Every rational thought screamed to move, yet her body stayed, because for that heartbeat, she wasn't invisible. He leaned in, so close she could feel the tremor in his jaw, the ache in his breath. His lips brushed the air before hers, an almost kiss that hung like a secret between them. Her hand pressed to his chest. His heart pounded beneath her palm, wild, desperate, human. Stop, she whispered, though her voice trembled. His eyes flickered, confused. Clara? Her throat tightened. I'm not Clara. The words seemed to tear through the haze. His shoulders sagged, and for a moment, he looked younger. Just a man lost in the ruins of something he couldn't fix. Maria took the glass from his hand, emptied it into the sink, and filled it with water. Here, she said softly. Drink this. You'll hate yourself less in the morning. He blinked, then obeyed. When he finished, he looked up, eyes meeting hers. Why are you being kind? Because someone should be, she said simply. And with that, she left. The next morning, the sun was unkind. Brent Morgan sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped, staring at the floor like it had answers. The suite reeked of last night, regret, Scotch silence. When the door opened again, Maria stepped in, professional mask firmly in place. He started, his voice rough. "You're back. Just to finish cleaning," she said briskly, wringing her mop. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. The memory of her hand against his chest, her quiet strength. It all hit him like a hangover he couldn't shake. "About last night. Don't," she snapped. "You don't get to treat people like props in your heartbreak, Mr. Morgan. Whatever ghosts you're chasing, don't drag strangers into it." He stared at her, stunned. No one talked to him that way. Not his investors. Not his PR team. Not even Clara when she left. Then slowly he nodded. "You're right." She blinked, caught off guard. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for mistaking you, and for acting like an idiot." Maria exhaled, tension easing from her shoulders. "It's fine. Just try not to drown next time. Okay?" A ghost of a smile curved his lips. "You always talk like that to guests? Only the ones who spill $1,000 liquor on the floor," she said, but there was a hint of warmth in her tone. When she turned to leave, he spoke again, softly, like he wasn't sure if he should. "Thank you." She didn't answer, but something in her chest fluttered. As the door closed behind her, Brent Morgan looked around the suite. The same walls where his dreams had ended. But for the first time in months, it didn't feel like a grave. It felt like the start of something he couldn't name. And Maria, walking down the hall, pressed a hand to her heart and whispered to herself, "Don't be stupid." But her pulse was still racing. Neither of them knew it yet, but that night, a billionaire and a maid, both abandoned by love, had just taken their first step toward each other. Chapter 3. The goodbye he didn't mean. For the first time in almost a year, Brent Morgan felt a strange kind of peace, quiet, fragile, undeserved. It had crept in slowly, in the sound of a woman humming down a hallway and the laughter of a child he had never met. But peace and guilt had never coexisted well inside him. He stared at his reflection in the hotel window, the skyline stretching beyond like a life he didn't quite belong to. The hotel had always been both sanctuary and punishment. It was where he'd planned to propose to Clara, where love was supposed to begin. Every stay since had been his way of reliving the loss, like scratching an old wound just to make sure it still hurt. But Maria Ellis, she'd changed that. She had spoken to him like he wasn't a man with headlines, just a man with hurt, and now that terrified him. He told himself he was leaving because it was time, because healing meant letting go of old ghosts and maybe of her too. But a quieter truth whispered beneath it. He was leaving because she made him want to stay, and wanting anything again felt dangerous. He left early, suitcase by the door, heart heavier than it should have been. Before he went, he pulled a single white rose from the arrangement she'd placed in his room days earlier, pressed and perfect like she was. He laid it on the nightstand with a folded note beside it. "You reminded me what being alive feels like. Thank you, from B." He read the words twice, sighed, then walked away. Maria found the note hours later while dusting. Her breath caught at the sight of the rose. White, fragile, timeless. For a second, she thought it was a joke, a gesture too beautiful to be meant for her. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Brent's. She stood there for a long time, note trembling in her fingers, before finally sitting on the edge of the bed. It was simple, just gratitude. Still, something in her chest ached. She placed the rose between the pages of her journal that night, the one she kept for things she couldn't say aloud, for prayers, for dreams, for moments that didn't belong anywhere else. "This doesn't mean anything," she whispered to herself. "Just a note from a lonely man. Just a reminder that people leave." She told herself she believed it. Days turned into weeks. Maria moved through her days the way she always did. Early mornings, packed lunches, evening stories before bedtime. Liam's laughter filled their small apartment like sunlight, and she let it drown out the quiet places in her heart where Brent still lingered. At night, after Liam fell asleep, she'd catch herself glancing at the journal on her dresser. Sometimes she'd open it just to see the rose. Its petals were fading, but the scent remained. Meanwhile, 30,000 feet above the clouds, Brent stared out the window of his jet as the city shrank below. He told himself this was closure, a fresh start. He'd built an empire from nothing, surely he could rebuild himself the same way. But as the plane ascended, the emptiness he'd hoped to escape followed him, quiet and loyal. He thought of her voice, gentle, matter-of-fact. "Pain doesn't make you unworthy of love. It just makes you afraid to believe in it again." He wondered why it echoed louder than anything else. That night, Maria sat by the window, sipping lukewarm tea. In another time zone, Brent poured a drink he didn't finish. Both whispered to their reflections, almost in sync, "Get over it." Neither did. Chapter 4. The Rooftop Reunion. After 6 months. The wind was cooler this time, gentler, touched with the smell of rain and city lights. Maria stood a few feet away from him, her heart caught somewhere between disbelief and a quiet, aching familiarity. The rooftop hadn't changed. Same skyline, same hum of life below. But he had. Brent Morgan wasn't the broken man she remembered. His suit fit perfectly, his posture was steady, his eyes, still sharp but softer now, met hers like he'd been searching for this moment longer than he'd admit. And yet, standing in front of him, Maria felt the same way she had 6 months ago, like she didn't belong in the same frame. Then he spoke, his voice low and certain. "You once told me grief doesn't make me unworthy of love," he said. "I never forgot that." Maria's breath caught. The line hit her like a memory because it was one. Words she'd said half in frustration, half in compassion, when he'd been too drunk to listen. And yet here he was remembering. She swallowed hard, trying to look anywhere but at him. "You shouldn't take everything I say so seriously." "I should have taken it seriously sooner." His gaze stayed on her, warm but steady, like he was afraid to blink and lose her again. Maria forced a small laugh, shaky at best. "You left without saying goodbye. I didn't think you'd care if I did." That stung more than she expected. She tried to hide it with a shrug. "You were right. I didn't." But her voice betrayed her. He heard the crack beneath the words. Brent took a slow breath, the kind that steadies hands before confession. "Maria, that room, that week, you reminded me what being alive felt like. I left because I thought it was the only way to stop needing that." She met his eyes then, and it was like time folded on itself. The same ache, the same tension, the same unspoken something. He took a step closer, but not enough to reach her. "Have dinner with me." The words came out simple, almost gentle, but they carried weight. Maria blinked, startled. Dinner. Nothing fancy, just dinner. A chance to talk properly. She shook her head, half laughing, half trembling. "Don't do this. You don't owe me anything." "I'm not doing it because I owe you." "Then why?" He hesitated, searching for the right truth. "Because you're the first person who's looked at me without expecting something. And I don't want that to end with a note." Maria crossed her arms, as if to shield herself. "You're from a world I clean up after, Brent. You say that like it doesn't matter, but it does. You'll go back to your world, and I'll go back to changing sheets in it." He stepped forward, his voice steady but threaded with quiet urgency. Then maybe I've been living in the wrong world. That silenced her. The city noise, the wind, even her heartbeat. It all blurred for a moment. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But she'd learned long ago that words, no matter how beautiful, couldn't change the truth of reality. Maria forced a polite smile, the kind that hides heartbreak. Thank you for the note, Brent, but I think it's better if we leave it at that. She turned, walking toward the elevator doors before she could second-guess herself. Brent watched her go, the sound of her footsteps fading. He didn't stop her. Not this time. But he also didn't give up. 3 days later, Maria sat in the hotel break room during her lunch break, sipping cheap coffee and pretending not to check her phone. Then it buzzed. From Brent Morgan. I owe you one evening. No money, just 2 people. She stared at the message, biting her lip. Her heart said yes before her mind could argue. She typed back slowly, thumb hovering over the screen. One evening, that's all. His reply came seconds later. That's all I need. Maria set her phone down, pressing a hand over her chest as if to quiet it. She smiled, small, nervous, defiant. For the first time in years, she wasn't sure if she was walking toward trouble or something beautiful. Maybe both. Chapter 5. The Dinner That Changed Everything. Maria almost didn't go. She had stood in front of her mirror for a full 10 minutes, convincing herself to cancel, then talking herself out of it. It wasn't a date. That's what she told herself. It was a thank you dinner, that's all. And yet, her reflection betrayed her. The pale blue dress she'd chosen wasn't fancy, but it softened her edges. Her hair, loose for once, framed her face instead of being tucked away in a bun. She'd even put on lipstick. Not much, just enough to remember she was still a woman, not just someone's mother or someone's employee. When she arrived at the small riverside restaurant Brent had chosen, not a luxury one, but quiet, intimate, tucked away beneath strings of golden lights, he was already waiting. The look on his face when he saw her stopped her mid-step. Wow, he said softly, standing up. His voice had dropped lower, steadier, like he didn't trust it to carry the weight of what he felt. You look, he trailed off, smiling, beautiful. Maria laughed under her breath, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. You sound surprised. I am, he admitted. You make it look easy. Dinner started cautiously, like 2 people trying to find a rhythm they'd once known. But soon, laughter began to fill the gaps between their sentences. Maria teased him about his picture-perfect posture. He teased her about her no-nonsense glare. You really told your CFO to get a soul once? She asked, wide-eyed. He chuckled. He was asking me to cut employee benefits. I thought it was a fair response. She shook her head, smiling. You really don't know how to be ordinary, do you? Ordinary. He leaned back, studying her. Maybe that's what I've been missing. Something in his tone made her heart skip. Between courses, conversation turned quieter, honest. He told her about the loneliness that came with power, how every room full of people still felt empty. She listened, not out of politeness, but because she understood. When she spoke, it was her turn to peel back a layer. I've been alone a long time too, she admitted. Not the sad kind of alone, just the kind that gets comfortable. You stop expecting anyone to stay. He nodded slowly, his expression softening. You deserve someone who will. Her gaze met his. And you deserve someone who doesn't leave. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was fragile, charged, suspended in something that neither of them wanted to name yet. After dinner, they walked along the riverside. The city glowed in reflection, lights shimmering across the dark water. A breeze swept past, carrying the faint scent of rain. "Do you ever miss it?" Maria asked. "The chaos? The spotlight?" Brent smiled, hands in his pockets. "I miss the noise sometimes, but not the loneliness that came with it." "You don't seem lonely now," she said softly. He looked at her then, eyes warm, searching. "That's because I'm not." A soft drizzle began to fall, tentative, then steadier. Maria laughed, tilting her face to the sky. Perfect timing. Brent shrugged off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. "You'll catch a cold." "I'm fine," she said, still smiling. "You'll ruin your jacket." He met her eyes, rain glistening in his hair. "It's just fabric." When she looked up at him, something shifted, the kind of silence that hums before lightning strikes. The world seemed to narrow to the rhythm of rain and breath. His hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed a wet strand of hair from her cheek. She didn't move, and then he kissed her. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't perfect. It was slow, hesitant, almost reverent, like he was rediscovering something sacred he hadn't known he'd lost. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Her fingers curled against his chest, torn between pushing him away and pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, her breath came out uneven. "This is dangerous," she whispered. He leaned in, forehead resting against hers, voice barely a murmur. "Then don't move." Rain poured harder, but neither of them cared. The city could have vanished and they wouldn't have noticed. By the time he walked her home, both were soaked through, coats heavy, laughter breathless. At her apartment door, they lingered under the awning, hearts still beating in the same rhythm. Brent reached out, tucking a damp strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered, fingers brushing her skin. Their foreheads touched, soft, quiet, full of words neither dared to speak. He was about to kiss her again when the door creaked open. "Mommy!" A small boy stood there in pajamas, rubbing his eyes. Maria's heart leapt to her throat. "Liam, honey, you're supposed to be in bed." Brent stepped back immediately, offering a gentle smile. "Hey, buddy."
I'm Brent.
Liam blinked sleepily. "Are you Mommy's friend?" Brent glanced at Maria, then back at the boy. "I hope so." Liam nodded, satisfied, and shuffled back inside. Maria turned to Brent, cheeks flushed, voice soft. "Good night, Brent." He smiled. Not the practiced kind she'd seen in magazines, but something real, small, full of quiet awe. "Good night, Maria." She watched him leave, the rain still falling, his silhouette fading into the glow of streetlights. When she closed the door, her hand lingered on the knob, her pulse still racing. And outside, Brent paused on the sidewalk, the sound of her son's voice replaying in his head, "Mommy's friend." He smiled to himself, heart steady for the first time in years. Because for once, he didn't want the perfect life. He wanted this one. The warmth, the mess, the ordinary magic of it all. Chapter 6. The space between them. It started with small things. Brent began showing up more often, not with grand gestures, but with quiet presence. He dropped by the hotel cafe while she was on break, always pretending it was coincidence. He'd bring coffee just the way she liked it, too sweet, too much milk, and pretend he didn't remember from before. Then one Saturday he met Liam properly. Maria had been fixing the chain on her son's second-hand bike when Brent appeared at the park, sleeves rolled up, smile hesitant. "Need a hand?" he asked. Maria blinked, torn between surprise and embarrassment. "You fix bikes now?" He grinned. "I can build skyscrapers. I can handle a bike chain." Liam's eyes widened. "You build skyscrapers?" "Guilty," Brent said, crouching down to inspect the wheel. "But this one's way more important." Liam laughed, bright and unguarded, as Brent showed him how to balance and pedal. When the boy wobbled, Brent ran alongside him, steadying the handlebars. "You've got it, champ. Just look forward. Don't be scared of falling." Maria watched from a distance, heart swelling in ways she didn't expect. When Liam finally managed to ride on his own, he turned and shouted, "Mom! Look, Brent helped." Brent shot her a look over his shoulder, half smile, half question. And when Liam asked, "Are you Mom's friend?" Brent replied without hesitation, "I'm trying to be." Something in Maria's chest cracked open. She didn't say it, but she'd never seen her son smile that wide with another man before. Over the next few weeks, the lines between friendship and something else blurred, beautifully, dangerously. He'd walk her home after late shifts, their shoulders brushing in the quiet streets. He'd reach for her hand, not asking permission, just finding it, and she didn't pull away. Some nights, he'd stay on her couch while she put Liam to bed, helping with homework or telling him stories about when grown-ups make bad business decisions. Liam adored him instantly. When Maria came back out, she'd find Brent half asleep on the couch, tie loosened, hair mussed, looking nothing like the billionaire on magazine covers. And somehow everything about that felt right. One night, they sat on her small balcony, city lights flickering below like fallen stars. Maria leaned against the railing, his jacket draped over her shoulders. "You know," she murmured, "you don't have to keep showing up. Liam already thinks you're some kind of superhero." Brent smiled faintly. "And what about you?" She smirked, trying to hide the way her pulse jumped. "I'm harder to impress." He leaned in, close enough that she could feel his breath brush her ear. "Then I'll just have to try harder." Her laugh caught halfway through. He wasn't teasing anymore, not really. The air between them thickened, heavy with something unspoken. He reached out slowly, tracing a damp strand of hair that had fallen against her cheek. His fingers lingered longer than they should have, just enough for her to feel the warmth. She didn't move, neither did he. It wasn't a kiss, not yet, but it was enough to set her heart racing in that reckless, terrifying way that only love, or something like it, could. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "This feels dangerous." "Yeah," he murmured. "It does." But neither of them stepped back. Weeks passed like that, slow, tender, full of stolen moments. The way his hand would brush hers when they passed each other a cup of coffee. The way he'd look at her across a room like he was memorizing her face. The way she started smiling again without realizing it. One night, after tucking Liam in, Maria found Brent waiting on the couch, sleeves rolled, tie gone, rain still clinging to his hair. She stood in the doorway watching him quietly. He turned, eyes tired but soft. "I'm not looking for a fairy tale, Maria," he said. "I just want something real, messy, honest. Whatever this is, I don't want to pretend it's nothing." She swallowed hard. Her voice barely came out. "Neither do I." And before she could lose her nerve, she crossed the room and kissed him. It was slow at first, tentative, trembling, then deeper, surer, like two people rediscovering how to breathe again. His hands framed her face gently, reverently, as though afraid she'd disappear. When they finally broke apart, foreheads touching, both were trembling. For different reasons, maybe, but trembling all the same. Maria exhaled shakily, the words barely audible. "For the first time in years," she whispered, "I'm not surviving." Brent smiled softly, brushing his thumb along her jaw. "You're living," he finished. And in that moment, heartbeats sinking, fears melting, she finally believed him. Chapter 7. The Past Knocks. For weeks, Life had finally learned to breathe again. Brent cooked badly but with enthusiasm. Maria laughed too loudly at his mistakes. Liam decided Brent made the best pancakes, even if they were oddly shaped. The apartment was small, the nights long, but for the first time Maria didn't mind. It was theirs, warm, messy, human. Then everything cracked. It started with whispers. Maria heard them first in the staff locker room, her name spoken like a curse and a secret. She's seeing him, isn't she? Brent Morgan? The Brent Morgan. Probably why she's been getting the easy shifts. She won't last long. Men like him don't stay with maids. Maria pretended not to hear, folding her uniform with trembling hands. But the looks followed her through the corridors. The raised brows, the half-smiles that stung worse than insults. By the third day, she was called into the manager's office. The woman couldn't even meet her eyes. Maria, there have been complaints. Corporates concerned about professional boundaries. You and Mr. Morgan, whatever's going on, it's causing attention. Maria blinked. Attention? There's talk of reassignment, the manager said softly. And someone's been calling, asking questions about you. About your employment. Someone. Maria didn't need to ask who. That afternoon, when she passed through the lobby, she saw him. Brent stood at the far end, near the fountain, his assistant whispering something urgently in his ear. Sir, she's here. Maria turned, and there, poised, perfect, untouchable, stood Clara, the ex-fiancée. The ghost that still haunted his name. She looked as though she had never left. Hair glossy, posture immaculate, voice smooth as silk. I realized I wasn't ready to lose you, Brent. Maria froze. The air seemed to vanish from the room. Brent's face went pale, 1,000 emotions colliding. Shock, guilt, confusion. Maria didn't wait to hear more. She walked away before her heart could break loud enough for them to hear it. He came to her later, breathless, desperate. She just showed up. I didn't know she was back. Maria laughed bitterly, wiping her hands on her apron. And yet, she was waiting right in your lobby. It's not what you think, he said. She said she needed closure. Closure. Her voice trembled, caught between anger and ache. Or nostalgia? Brent's silence said enough. You don't have to say it, she whispered. Some loves leave ghosts that still sleep in your bed. He reached for her hand. She stepped back. Maria, don't make me the woman someone has to choose. Her eyes shone, but she didn't cry. Not yet. Not where he could see. The next day, headlines bloomed across gossip sites like poison. Billionaire Brent Morgan reunites with ex-fiancée Clara Walsh. The photo showed them sitting close at a restaurant table, heads inclined, shadows cast by candlelight, intimate, deceptive. Maria saw it on her coworker's phone before she could look away. Her heart clenched as the other maids whispered behind her. I told you he'd go back to her. She thought she was special. Poor thing. Cleaning rooms again, while he dines with his real kind. She finished her shift in silence, knuckles white around her mop handle. By evening, she was told not to return to work until the situation was reviewed. Someone had made sure of that. That night, thunder rolled over the city, and rain lashed against the glass. Maria was halfway through packing her cleaning supplies when a knock rattled her door. She opened it, and there he was. Brent stood drenched, eyes dark with exhaustion and pleading. Maria, please, he said, voice rough. Let me explain. She crossed her arms, fighting the tremor in her voice. You don't have to. I saw the photos. I heard the rumors. I lost my job today. Maria, I didn't go back to her. I met Clara to end it, for good. Then why does the world think you didn't? He stepped closer, water dripping from his hair, his voice breaking through the storm. Because she wanted it that way. She's been leaking stories, feeding the gossip, trying to push you out. But I swear, Maria, it's over. It's been over for a long time. She shook her head, tears finally spilling. You said you were done looking backward. I am, he said, voice low, desperate. But I had to close that chapter with you watching, so you'd know I chose you with both eyes open. She looked up at him, pain softening into something like disbelief. For a moment, she almost believed him. Almost. Then her voice broke, barely more than a whisper. Then close it without me. The door shut gently, not slammed, but the sound was somehow louder than thunder. Brent stayed outside for a long time, rain pooling around his shoes, his chest hollow with the weight of everything left unsaid. Inside, Maria pressed her back to the door, breathing through tears. The world outside had turned against her. But what hurt most wasn't the rumors or Clara's cruelty. It was that, deep down, she'd started to believe she might be worth staying for, and now she wasn't sure anymore. Chapter 8. The Rooftop at Dawn. Weeks passed. The world moved on, as it always does, but neither of them really did. Maria poured herself into the quiet rhythm of life. Morning breakfasts with Liam, job applications that led nowhere, the silence that followed every time her phone buzzed and it wasn't him. She told herself she'd stopped waiting, that she was fine, that what they had was a beautiful mistake she'd never regret. Then one morning the world stopped again, this time because of him. The TV in her small living room flickered with the familiar face she'd tried not to miss. Brent Morgan, sitting in a press conference, not flanked by lawyers or PR managers. Just him. No script, no polish, just truth. He looked straight into the cameras, voice steady but unguarded. People think strength means never breaking, he said softly. I used to believe that, but I've learned real strength is loving again after you've been shattered. Reporters murmured. Cameras clicked. He paused, eyes searching some invisible horizon. There's someone who reminded me of that. Someone who made me remember that being seen for who you are, even at your lowest, is the most powerful thing in the world. He took a breath. Her name is Maria Ellis. The room went silent. He didn't smile. He didn't play to the crowd. He just said her name like it was something sacred. Maria's breath hitched. Her hand flew to her mouth. On the couch beside her, Liam looked up. Mom? He said your name. Tears spilled freely now, raw, disbelieving. Yeah, she whispered, voice trembling. He did. At dawn the next day, her phone buzzed with a single message. From Brent Morgan. Rooftop. Sunrise. Bring Liam. Maria stared at it for a long time, torn between fear and hope. She didn't know him anything. But deep down, her heart was already moving toward the door. Liam tugged at her sleeve, smiling sleepily. Mom, you always say the brave ones show up. She laughed weakly, brushing his hair back. Yeah, baby, you're right. So they went. The rooftop was bathed in soft gold when they arrived, the sky just beginning to open its eyes. Brent stood near the edge, 2 cups of coffee steaming beside him, the sunrise framing him in light. When he turned and saw them, Maria in her worn jacket, Liam holding her hand, something in him loosened for the first time in years. He crouched down to Liam's level, pulling something from his coat pocket. A small wooden toy car, simple and handmade. For you, he said gently. Your mom saved me once. I thought maybe I could return the favor by helping keep her safe. Liam's eyes widened as he took it. You made this. Brent smiled. Took me for tries. I'm not great at sanding corners. Maria laughed through her tears, the sound breaking the morning quiet. You? Doing something imperfect? That's new. He stood, his gaze meeting hers, steady, certain. I'm done chasing perfection, Maria. I don't care what the world says. You, Liam, us, this is my reality now. Her breath trembled as he stepped closer, hands rising to cup her face. His thumbs brushed the remnants of her tears away as though he was erasing the last of her doubt. Then, softly, deliberately, he kissed her. Just a steady, grounding promise as sunlight broke across the sky. Liam giggled behind them. You, Mom. Maria laughed against Brent's lips, forehead resting against his as they both smiled. Guess we've been caught. Brent looked at Liam, then back at her. I can live with that. Months later, life looked different, but beautifully so. At a modest press event, Brent introduced her not as a statement, not as a scandal, but as his partner. No titles. No cham. Just truth. Maria started her own cleaning business, Ellis and Shine. A small, thriving company built from grit and kindness. Brent showed up often, rolling up his sleeves, helping wipe windows or carry boxes, completely unbothered by gossip or glances. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. One evening, long after Liam had gone to bed, they sat together in the glow of the city lights, his arm draped around her shoulders, her head resting against him. You saw me when no one else did, she whispered. He smiled, pressing a kiss to her hair. And I never stopped. For Maria Ellis, love didn't arrive wrapped in perfection. It came with pasts that haunted, kisses that healed, and a man brave enough to choose her every day. And for Brent Morgan, love wasn't about being saved. It was about finally choosing to live. The rooftop glows. The city hums below. And for once, both of them are exactly where they're meant to be.